Reverend Parrish here. Thanks again for joining us here at Kenneth Parrish Ministries, where we do attempt to teach the Word of God one day at a time. You know, from almost the day that we're born, we begin to notice the difference between boys and girls, men and women. And I'm not just talking about the physical differences either. I'm talking more about the ways we view life. The way we react to circumstances around us, as well as the way we socialize and build friendships, and so on and so on. There's no doubt that there is a big difference between men and women. Now, that difference can either frustrate us to no end, or it can be something that we can learn to enjoy. Now, these differences should not be something negative, but rather they should be positive, something to celebrate. If we can view our differences with the right attitude, we'll begin to see these differences enhancing our marital experiences rather than detracting from it. Now, from the very beginning of time, it was God's intention to create two different sexes within the human race, male and female. We read in the Bible, so God created man in his own image. In the image of God created he him. Male and female created he them. Genesis 1:27. Let me ask you a question. Who's better, a man or a woman? The answer to that question is yes. A man is infinitely superior to a woman at being a man. And a woman is infinitely superior to a man at being a woman. Men and women are different by design. God made us different so that we can be one. Neither is superior to the other, but we are very, very different. My wife Kathy and I are a lot alike, but we are also very different. As a matter of fact, they say that the more people live together, the more they become alike. They even begin looking alike. And Kathy's starting to get very worried about that. A hammer and a screwdriver are both tools, yet they were designed for different jobs. Is the hammer better than the screwdriver? No. Is the screwdriver better than a hammer? Of course not. Can you use a screwdriver as a hammer? Sometimes. It just won't work as well because they were designed differently. Today I want to address these wonderful differences that exist between men and women, but just like with everything else, there are exceptions to every rule. Not every case will fit your particular situation. These differences I'm going to discuss are only generalities. For example, generally speaking, a man is stronger than a woman. Now, I've seen some women that could bounce my behind up and down Main Street without even breaking a sweat. These women I wouldn't even want to meet in a dark alley. But on average, a man is stronger than a woman. So when I'm talking to you about differences between the sexes, I'm talking generalities. Now, before we get started, I do have to give credit to Pastor Adrian Rogers for coming up with the following list. That being said, the first difference is the difference between the beauty and the beast. As we said earlier, women are physically weaker than men, and men are physically stronger than women. 1 Peter 3:7 tells us, "Likewise, ye husbands, dwell with them according to knowledge, giving honor unto the wife as unto the weaker vessel." God made Adam stronger than he did Eve. He had a physical frame that was stronger. His bones were stronger. His chest was broader. Why? Because God gave Adam a specific job to dress the garden, to keep the garden. And the Lord God took the man and put him into the Garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. Genesis 2:15. Adam was to be both the provider and the protector. He had a physical frame that could protect Eve, and he had muscles to dig and work in the garden. He was designed that way by God. Now, Eve was different. The word Eve means life giver. God made her to be the nurturer. He made her body to be loved, to be gentle, soft, to be cuddly. All the things that a nurturer needs. Because Eve was weaker than Adam, it doesn't mean she was inferior to Adam. Silk is weaker than canvas, but it's not inferior to canvas. Porcelain is weaker than steel, but it's certainly not inferior. I mean, after all, you can make a teacup out of porcelain, you can make a sledgehammer out of the steel, but you can't drink tea from a sledgehammer. God made women more fragile than men. On average, a man's body is 40% muscle, whereas the woman's body is only 25% muscle. The other 15% of the woman's body is made up of a thin layer of cellulite in order to insulate her body, because a woman just doesn't have as much blood as a man. A man has about 1.5 gallons of blood compared to about 4/5 of a gallon for a woman. That's why your wife always has cold feet. Men also have a larger lung capacity, but a thicker skull, something women has always said. A woman, though, has more brittle bones, but a better immune system. Men and women are simply different. Every cell in their body is different. Men have the XY chromosomes, whereas women have the XX chromosome. Neither is better, they're only different. The next thing is the difference between the tortoise and the hare. You remember that story about the tortoise and hare? They had a race, and the hare just took off straight out of the starting line and ran full force, and all of a sudden he started doing this and doing that and all other kinds of things. In the meantime, the tortoise just kept up that steady pace. Just that steady pace. And eventually, the tortoise won the race.
Yes, folks, the tortoise always wins.
Yeah, the turtle always wins. How does he do it?
Men, you are the hare. Women, you're the tortoise. Generally, men have more energy, but women have more durability. As we said earlier, men have a larger lung capacity, so they can carry more oxygen throughout the body. But women have a better immune system. A woman will get tired before a man will. I'm talking averages now. A man can outwork a woman, but he shouldn't criticize her for that. You see, she can last longer. Us men might win the 100-yard dash in the life, but you women, you're going to win the marathon. At the age of 20, a woman's body begins to deteriorate at the rate of about 2% a year. A man's body at the age of 20 begins to deteriorate at the rate of about 10% a year. And after the age 40, that's even faster. So men don't get frustrated with your wife if she can't keep up with you. And women, try to understand your husband's energy. Which is better? Neither. They're only different. Next, we have the difference between the romantic and the mechanic. Man has a job. He is to dress and keep the garden. And in order to do that, he has that hard outer shell. A woman's job is to be the nurturer. She is to love and to be gentle and to be soft. Men will never have the romantic heart that a woman wants him to have. He's just not wired that way. Now, he may have had it at one point. He may have had that romantic heart while he was courting you. But once you got married, something happened. He had a brain transplant or something. But see, that's all part of his skill in finding a mate. Look at the types of books women read and compare that to what men read. Women's magazines have articles like, "How do you develop closeness with your husband?" or 5 ways to achieve intimacy, while men read articles like "How to remodel your garage" or "How to be a champion bass fisherman." Men are just different from women. Go to any high school and watch how the students carry their books. Girls, they carry them like they're carrying a baby. Boys hang theirs down to the sides, even if they carry them at all. People try to tell us that these differences are learned, but I'm telling you now, they're not. They are encoded. Let's take a moment to look at a love song. Song of Solomon. A beautiful love song. Very spiritual. But it also shows differences between the sexes. First, we'll read what the woman is saying. "By night on my bed I sought him, whom my soul loveth. I sought him, and I found him not. I will rise now and go about the city in the streets, and in the broad ways I will seek him whom my soul loveth. I sought him, but I found him not. The watchmen that go about the city found me, to whom I said, Saw ye him whom my soul loveth? It was but a little that I passed from them, but I found him whom my soul loveth. I held him and would not let him go." Song of Solomon, chapter 3, verses 1 through 4. Notice how romantic she is. I love him. My soul loves him. I love him. I miss him. I want to hold him. Very romantic. Now, let's look at what the man has to say. "Behold, thou art fair, my love. Behold, thou art fair. Thou hast dove's eyes within thy locks. Thy hair is as a flock of goats that appear from Mount Gilead. Thy teeth are like a flock of sheep that are even shorn, which come up from the washing, whereof every one bears twins, and none is barren among them. Thy lips are like a thread of scarlet, and thy speech is comely. Thy temples are like a piece of pomegranate within thy locks. Thy neck is like the tower of David, builded for armory, whereon there hung 1,000 bucklers, all shields of mighty men. Thy 2 breasts are like 2 young roes that are twins, which feed among the lilies." Song of Solomon, chapter 4, verses 1 through 5. Notice the difference? She's calling him my lover, my love, my sweetheart. But he's basically saying she's a knockout. She's hot.
Smoking!
Men are not turned on by romance, but are turned on visually. He is turned on by your beauty. He is a creature that is attracted by what he sees. Men, you need to learn to be romantic for your wives. And women, you need to learn to keep yourself beautiful as much as possible for your husbands. Which is better? Neither. Only different. Another difference is between the radar and the computer. Men and women process information differently. You see, a man's brain works more like a computer, while a woman's brain is more like a radar. It's been shown that while solving a problem, a woman will use both hemispheres of her brain, while a man will only use the left hemisphere. It has been scientifically proven what women have known for all these years, that a man uses only half a brain. You see, there are two hemispheres in our brains. The left hemisphere deals primarily with logic, calculations, reasoning, etc. The right hemisphere deals with emotions, creativity, sympathy, intuition. Men primarily will only use the left side of the brain, but a woman uses both. Because a woman uses both sides of her brain, she can see and feel things that we men just don't see and feel. This would explain women's intuition. This also makes it easier for her to express emotions, but it may also be harder for her to separate those emotions from reason. Using mainly the left side of the brain, a man tends to think more logically, analytically, and factually. This is why men cry less than women. You see, men have a disconnect. We can disconnect our emotional side of the brain from the analytical side of the brain. Women just don't have that ability. But which is better? Neither. They're just only different. The next difference is that of the code speaker and the reporter. A woman uses language to express emotion, while a man uses language primarily to dispense facts. It's important to learn this. Men need to listen to what a woman means and not what she says. If you come home and you sense that your wife is upset, but she says nothing is wrong, that means everything is wrong. Women speak in code. If she asks if she looks all right, she wants you to tell her she's beautiful. So don't listen to what she says, listen to what she means. Women share, men report. That's the way God made us. Neither is better, they're only different. And finally, we have the difference between the lover and the achiever. Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife even as himself, and the wife see that she reverence her husband. Ephesians 5:33. What does God tell the husband to do in this passage? To love his wife. Now, what does God tell the wife to do? To reverence or respect her husband. Why? Because God knows our deepest needs. A woman's deepest need is romance. They want to be loved. They want to be cherished and cared for and adored. They want to be put on a pedestal and be number one in your life. What's a man's greatest need? It's to be admired. He wants to be respected. She is the lover. He is the achiever. God gave her a nurturing instinct, but told man to dress the garden and to keep it. God equipped man mentally for that. God gave him that hard exterior. He wants to be admired by her. You know, I love it when Kathy tells me how well I did something. It's a blessing to me when she goes out and she comes back and says that the lawn looks good, or how good the Christmas decorations look that I put up. She, on the other hand, gets a blessing when I'm romantic and I'm loving toward her and I tend to her needs. Another thing is when a woman tells a man a problem, the first thing he's going to try to do is fix it. She doesn't all the time want it fixed. She just needs someone to listen to her, to hug her, to love her. A man wants admiration. He gets joy from his successes. She wants love. Which is better? Neither. They're only different. These differences, believe it or not, shouldn't divide us. They should unite us. God made us different so that He could make us one. These are more than mere psychological proclivities. They are there by divine design. A suspension bridge always sways back and forth, sometimes up to 20 feet in the middle. All that concrete and steel just swaying back and forth. But it's flexible. But there are two towers that go deep down into that granite. These are the foundations of the bridge. And all of the cables are connected to those two towers. Now, what are the two towers in your marriage? Love for God and love for each other. Everything else are the cables providing that flexibility. It's time to stop trying to be the same or resenting each other because of our differences. If you're married, I hope that you'll take the differences that we've talked about to heart and see how God can clearly use them to strengthen your home life. Now, if you're not married, my hope and prayer is that you too will recognize these differences that we have, and that they've been given to us by God, and that someday, if you do get married, you'll learn to appreciate these differences before you even get started. For all of us, it is important in these days that we lift each other, our marriages, and our church up in prayer as we face the days ahead. Until we meet again, may the grace of our good Lord